Hello, welcome. This is the Resilient Rooster. I'm back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today I'm going to be showcasing Darklords. So Darklords didn't really get effect from Master Rule 4. I felt like they actually got a boost since now they can make Skull Dread, and Skull Dread can just help you draw 4 cards. There's a lot of draw power that this deck has. You have Eggshell, which helps you draw 2. We have a Lord of Darkness, which helps you draw 2. You can also run Pot of Desires and trade in to draw 2, but I felt like with the amount of hand traps I run, I felt I should just cut some of them out. But I think Skull Dread alone is good enough since you could just put the cards that are dead back to your deck. So this is my deck right now. There's probably a lot of adjustment that you can make, but I think that this deck is pretty alright since I think I run around 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hand traps. So it's pretty much going second or going first build. So let's get right into the replays. So my first opponent of the day today is World Chalice, and I get to start first. I tried to use Eggshell, but it got Ash, and that hurt a lot because it's basically a -2. I tried to use Venus again, but I get Ogred. But fortunately, I had the Darklord contract, which helps me summon my Superbia, which helps me get my Venus back. So at this point, I just tried to get my Skull Dread to help me draw 4 cards to help me recover at least some of my cards that I lost in the process. I was able to summon or to draw Christia, which basically I special summoned it with Skull Dread, and my opponent basically had no plays after that since they can't special summon. I feel with the amount of cards that you play in your hand to draw cards and search cards, it's good to run Gamma, that way you can negate the Ash. Also, when you summon the Gamma off, you get 2 monsters, and that's 2 different names. It helps summon Skull Dread a lot easier. I got the Grinder Golem, so I might as well use it. I can't normal summon this turn, but your Skull Dread basically negates it since you can special summon from your hand. And this one, I basically had the combos pieces to just go off a lot. I summoned the Venus with Skull Dread, and now I get 3 extra Shine Balls, and now the goal is basically to at least get Firewall to bounce the Grinder Golem back. That way you get more resources to go off even more. And I don't want my opponent to, keep the Grinder Golem since it's 3k beat stick and they can just attack over my Floodgate cards like Christia. I make another Skull Dread card basically to draw 4 cards, and more importantly to get the extra special summon. So I summon Christia, and at this point it's kind of hard for my opponent to play. They continue to see if they can draw a good card going, or hopefully draw Raigeki next turn, but I believe they draw Mizuki next turn. And I basically get to just go off even harder. I send cards from my deck to the grave, that way I can use Eggshell's effect and just copy it. My opponent just draws Mizuki and just quickly surrenders. Darklords have a tendency to brick sometimes, and this was the case here. I went first, but I didn't have any plays, so I basically just passed. I didn't want to summon the Ubak since I can't use Gamma after. My opponent didn't have a great hand either, so they basically made an Electrum, and I had the Gamma for it. They did Ash me, but they have knowledge that I have the Gamma, so they didn't try to use their Electrum's effect. And at this point, I got the Eggshell, which was the card I needed to help me unbrick. And I get to go off at this point. I used my Ubak to send the one that Brain controls, and I took over the Electrum, and I made the Skull Dread with it. And I draw my 4 cards, and I basically was able to draw the cards to clear the field. I kind of misplayed because I thought I didn't know that Ubak was once per turn. Otherwise, I would have waited to use my text up or the TEZ the next turn. But my opponent basically didn't have a good hand and they surrendered. In this next duel, I opened up a pretty good hand. The only problem was I went second. And going second, basically, there's a lot of boards that have a lot of disruption, which makes Venus not a great card since they can basically negate it, they can blow it up. There's so many things that can go wrong. And at this point, my opponent had warning, so it just stopped my Venus. I did have the contract though, but I didn't have the Superbia in the grave, which kind of sucked. And my opponent basically had the ABC Buster this time, and now it's an uphill battle. I have to try to see if I can get over this ABC Buster Dragon, and I drew the card I needed. I drew the Zerato, and Zerato I can basically tribute a dark monster and basically blow up the whole field. So I use Eggshell to use the contract card to summon the Zerato, and Zerato uses effect, and now I basically forced a tag out. They tagged out to the ABC stuff, and I basically destroyed all of them. My opponent has the soul charge though, so they're probably not that worried. I set the enchantment down as, you know, a bait or a bluff. My opponent tries to, you know, banish it, but I gambled it, so I got rid of the dragon and the cards in the banish pile. So at this point, I sort of made them run out of resource. Unfortunately, they had Scapegoat, and Scapegoat can basically make a Borreload or a Skull Dread. And I think they chose to make a Skull Dread this duel. So they made the Skull Dread, they draw 4, but I had the Ash. The point, or like when you're playing against ABC, you don't want them to get the Union Hanger because they get so much advantage from the Union Hanger. I top decked Dark Rebellion, but it was rather activate my enchantment or activate the Eggshell, and I chose to activate the Eggshell. And I don't think it mattered at the end since they had Judgment, and now they could just attack me for a game. Not every game you're going to be able to resolve the Venus successfully. This time my opponent had the Ash, so I can't really draw the 4 cards from Skull Dread. It's good to save it for the Skull Dread because if you use it on the Venus, then you just outplayed yourself since they could just activate it again. I summoned the Skull Dread, they ashed it, but the good news is I can still use the special summon effect. So I special summon I can't really pronounce it, TEZ. I set 2, and I waited until I drew a Darklord card until I used Rebellion, so I got rid of the strike. I used the effect again to basically destroy the Imperial Order, and at this point, I get to at least spam the field in some sort of fashion. They basically got access to ABC, they can get all their cards to the graveyard. So they drew another A, they summoned the C, Monster Reborn, and at this point, they pretty much have ABC access. They were able to summon the A from, I believe, C, and then they made the ABC Buster using my zone from the Skull Dread. So now it's a 3300 beat stick ABC. They used their effect to banish my card, but I was able to just go Zolgard and get rid of it. So now it's just gonna be who's gonna get the cards that they need first. The only problem is if they get Union Hanger, then I'm in trouble, since Union Hanger basically makes this deck super good for both top decking, and it's pretty hard. I keep drawing, and we just keep both passing since Baguska basically stops all the plays. I could switch this to attack mode, but it'll just go back to defense mode, so no point really. I basically set my enchantment just in case, you know, anything goes wrong during their turn, and I can use enchantment as a disruptor. And my opponent had the Torrential Tribute, but I don't think it mattered if they Torrential Tribute or not because I had the contract card. So I take this last game. So that's gonna be it for the Darklord replays. If you enjoy it, please click the like button. If you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh content, please click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching and have a great day.